From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
This is taking us to Bosnia, courtesy of a wonderful letter and a little bit of a funny story. First, get this nickname. Actually, just wait for the nickname at the end of this. I'll read this first letter and then share what's going on. Hey guys, I found your show last year and listened to it almost every day now. Thanks for always keeping the show so varied. There are two subjects which I find vastly interesting, where I'm not sure if you have covered it. The first is Bigfoot. Oh, buddy, you're in the right place. We have. We'll get to that in a sec. Anyway, the letter continues. I'm based in the United Kingdom and find the stories around the Sasquatch fascinating, as they are all over the world with so many similarities that it seems impossible to believe it can be fake. The second topic is the Bosnian pyramids. I don't know much about it, but based on what I have read, there's a lot to discuss with a lot of mystery surrounding it. Keep up the great work and keep watching the skies. Yours skeptically, Zach Squash. like Sasquatch, but Zach Squatch. You know what? The nickname alone. Thank you so much, Zach Squatch. So I did a search because we receive a lot of correspondence. I'll read correspondences about topics that kind of cycle in and out, often based on the news, because the news is its own sort of Ouroboros kind of recursive thing. And I wondered, because I had also, similar to the story of the Oakville Blob when I was younger, I wondered whether there was any sand to the idea of ancient pyramids. And Matt, back in the day, you and I did a pretty good piece on non-Egyptian pyramids, I believe. Can't remember the exact year, but we did mention these a little, but not too much in depth. So I searched to see if other people had asked for it, and then I found, hopefully more endearing than embarrassing, and then I found that back in 2020, the old man Bolin himself had written in about this, and I completely ignored his email. I think I may have forwarded it to you guys. But sorry, Dad, if you're listening, now that someone else has asked, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, sorry about that. Ben, we did, I think it was like, what about the other pyramids or something like that? It was in 2017. It was a long time ago.
It's 2017. Yeah. Okay. Great memory there, Matt. So here's what's going on. There's a cluster of hills in central Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it's in an area called Visoko. This cluster of hills, if you look at it, does look like, you could see why it looks like a pyramid, especially considering that so many natural human-made structures over time have been they've been taken back by nature, right? So they turn into mounds. Or you could see amazing ruins if you shaved the jungle to the ground, basically in Central America. I've included here a picture of the hills I'm talking about. They're in the Visoko area. And would you guys like to describe them? I'd love to hear your takes.
Well, I'm looking at a pyramid that's covered with trees. That's what I'm looking at.
It looks like a topiary, like a massive bush that was trimmed into the shape of a pyramid.
Ben, there's a similar one on one of the links you provided, emerging-europe.com. It's just, I think it's just a slightly different angle of the same thing. And it really does, at certain angles, look like straight lines, straight diagonal lines going down, not any kind of normal erosion happening on a slope. It's really weird.
Right. Yeah. And ding, 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 you're on the money with the idea about angles. It's similar to reports of a large face on Mars. From the right angle, it does look like a huge face on Mars. However, This story is a little more complicated, I think, because the primary claims are from an archaeologist, self-taught, named Sam Osmanagic. I may be mispronouncing the name here. Sam is one of the primary champions of this idea. He says that 12,000 years ago, early Europeans in Bosnia didn't just build pyramids. They built the largest ancient pyramids on the planet. He himself is a Bosnian American businessman. He's been making these claims since at least 2005. The problem is a lot of people, sadly, Zach Squatch, disagree. And sadly, Mr. Bullet, they disagree because the idea here is tantalizing, right? But unfortunately, the other research into this hasn't borne out Sam's initial claims. Why does it sound kind of reasonable, to be honest with you? Well, it's because so many ancient pyramids exist, and we talked about this in our earlier episode, due to the fact that human beings are all relatively the same level of intelligence, right? And they all figured out at separate times that stacking rocks together with a larger base that tapers at the top is a really efficient way to build piles of stuff. It's just gravity. This doesn't necessitate the presence of extraterrestrials or multidimensional entities. In this case, people were already saying that, this guy was maybe being sincere, but definitely pseudoscientific. And they busted his claims a little bit, but he's claimed that there are tunnels around the hill complex that are part of an ancient man-made underground network. He claims to have found fossilized plant matter in these tunnels dating back 34,000 years. He also hasn't really helped his case by claiming that there is unusual activity at the top of these pyramids that the locals consider hills. He says that there are standing waves he's encountered there that travel faster than light and prove the idea of a cosmic internet, which will allow you to communicate across the universe, which may happen one day as scientific progress continues. He also believes in ancient astronauts. He claims human beings are the product of genetic engineering. What I'm saying is, for the rank and file of the academy, he's not making a case for what they would consider to be his credibility. And if you, like you said, Matt, if you look at the hills from a different angle, they do not look as pyramid shaped. They look much more rounded. They look less like man-made construction. And also, just to give you some context, fellow conspiracy realists, the article that Matt just mentioned earlier, emerging-europe.com, the headline of that article, the title of that article is pretty telling. It's by Nikola Dordovic. The title is, "Are there ancient pyramids in Bosnia?" Probably not. Unfortunately, because look, when we have to talk about stuff like this, or I don't know about my colleagues here, but when we have to talk about stuff like this, I want it to be real. Yeah. If I wanted something, and Matt, I know we're both I want to believers. Can we say that?
No, that's exactly what we're. I want to believers. I think there's a B in there.
Oh, it's a Justin Bieber thing.
Yeah,
he'll turn it around. It's tough work to be a musician, as
it really is.
And
yummy.
I know, you're on the same page. We have to be honest with ourselves and with the facts when we look at this stuff. But another thing that puts it in a weird light for a lot of people is, I think, a little unfair. It's that he's Bosnian American. And so the idea is, oh, you discovered history's most important pyramids and they just happen to be where you're from. You know what I mean? I think that's an unfair accusation, but I can see why people might reject it. But also, how would you treat it if you were a local? Would you be in it?
Heck
for the
yeah, it's pyramids.
I mean,
yeah.
are there like secret doors? Like I want to go inside. It looks like there's merch and stuff. Like it's obviously something that the area has made into almost like a trying to make the name for themselves, like a destination, right? Like
That's just smart.
It's super smart, but I also I want to know more. I want to go inside.
Yeah,
You
so
know?
you got to visit. You got to spend money at the cafes.
Mhm.
Got
You gotta
to
get the
spend a couple
hat.
nights.
Yeah, I see some pyramid Crocs almost like going on here. Placemat, some like leather goods, things like that. I mean, yeah. Pretty
It
clever.
happened. Yeah, it happened in Roswell as well. You know, it's happening in the small town that is associated with Mexico's zone of silence, which was in that previous episode. I think we made a strong argument that it was knowingly a tourist. It was like designed to be a tourist attraction. But with this, the question is how much this one champion of this idea genuinely believes in it. Since 2005, well, between 2005 to 2009, just 4 years, at the time there was an excellent article written about this in the Smithsonian, more than 400,000 people have visited the site. And they were selling, like you said, Noel, there's a lot of merch, piggy banks, clocks, flip-flops. You can go to restaurants. See, this sounds fun. You can go to restaurants and you'll eat on pyramid-shaped plates. I guess that means triangles. I'm not sure. Like, are they 3D and it's just really tricky to perch the sandwich on it?
It's just spaghetti that you just like drop down the pyramid.
Ben, did you mention torsion fields?
The standing waves, I think, may be the same, but what are the torsion fields?
It's just like this just gentleman, again, this is coming from him, I think, believes that the pyramids are capable of communicating using torsion field, which is just like a theoretical physics concept, I believe. It is a field that can travel faster than the speed of light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier, like a universal internet communication system. Like literally universal. That's the idea. One day, maybe, but it does not appear science is the source of what he has called those standing waves.
And he's attributing it to this like mega advanced civilization that like they have this technology that we can't possibly wrap our hands around. But yet we don't really have any evidence of this civilization or any, fossil record or anything like that. It really just I don't know. What is it if it's not that? It's crazy looking. I'll tell you that.
You can't understand it. Noel, that's the whole point. And I and anybody else, we can't understand it.
It's like if you saw the face of God, your mind would just break.
Sometimes a hill is just a hill, which doesn't make it any less remarkable because nature is amazing and astonishing. There's something else here, maybe not a conspiracy, but there's something very important that we need to understand, which is, I wish folks talked about this more often. Archaeology is a weapon. It can be weaponized. It is used to legitimate any number of claims and decisions to not engage in some digs have been used in the past to prevent the legitimization of certain groups. This continues today. It's quite controversial in different parts of the world. And it tells us something about what we could call the political uses of archaeology. There's an anthropologist named Philip Cole over at Wellesley College who thinks that Osmanagich's attempts to create pyramids from these hills are part of a larger push to have a sense of identity, a sense of self-affirmation. And Cole raises, this is interesting to me. I'm not sure how far along I can go with it, but Cole argues that when the Iron Curtain collapsed in the former Eastern Bloc, all these land and territorial claims came up and people had, quote, just lost their ideological moorings. So he says there's a great attraction in being able to say we have great ancestors, we go back millennia, and we can claim these special places for ourselves. He says in some places this is relatively benign. In others, it can be malignant. And it makes sense. I mean, it goes beyond tourism, right? There's this idea. It's very tempting, I think, if you feel connected to a place, to hear that it is extraordinary, unique, special. Those are true of every place in the world, by the way. But to hear that something maybe even supernatural is going on, maybe your home is the seat of a lost civilization, well, it's very tempting to associate yourself with that. You know what I mean? Next thing you know, you've got someone saying, I am descended from Atlantis, and nothing you can say will change my mind about that fact, because now it is a part of my identity. I'm not saying that's conclusively what's happening with Osmanagich, but it is interesting. And there's where I propose we leave it for today. Thank you so much, Zach Squatch. Your nickname made my absolute week. Do check out that 2017 episode about other pyramids. And thank you as well to Jake, and thank you to Bronze Ranked Boomer. These are some great stories today.
And Ben, I have to say, I just found that email from Papa Bolin, and now I've got his cell phone number. So I'm gonna call you. I gotta call your dad, dude.
It's probably a burner by this point. I mean, it's been a year. It's been 3 months.
It's probably true.
Yeah.